So here we go, real quick. I'm recording again just to let you know. Square and cube roots. To find the square root of a number using this chart right here, go to the perfect square column. Why are you talking while I'm talking? Go to the perfect square column, find a number, then go left to the number. So if I'm looking for the square root of 49, I find 49 in this column, and then I look over. My answer should be 7. Okay, if I'm looking for the cube root, find the cube root of a number, go to the perfect cube column, and find the number, then go to the left to the number column. So if I'm looking for the cube root of 8,000, I'm going to this column right here, and I'm going to look down. Nope, I'm going to look down until I find 8,000, and then I go over. It's 20. It's 20. All right? So now let's do some examples. Ms. Scanlon. Example 1.
What is
You should be writing this down.
square root
Square root
of 8,836?
Square root of 8,836. Christian is not here. Jade. Square root of 8,836. What column are you looking in? Are you looking in the n square, n cube, or the square root of n?
Sit down. You've got at least 2 more minutes. Sit down. Do this all
Which column do we look in to find the square root?
What does it say at the top?
N squared. Can you find that number in n squared? $8,836. What number? 94. Very good. Example 2. What about the square root of 0.04?
How would I handle that?
Square root of 0.04.
Is that going to be on here? No. So what do I have to do? Write it down. You could write it down, but then what? What would you divide by? How would you go about that? What number under that radical is something that's familiar?
I heard somebody say,
It's familiar, right? So if I need to multiply 2 numbers together, what numbers times itself is going to give me 4? 2.
good.
So I need to work with that. But there's a decimal there. How many decimals or how many digits are behind the decimal point? 2. So if I multiply 0.2 times 0.2, how many digits would be behind the decimal point?
2. So a good rule, here you go, write a little note. When finding square root, I'm just going to put that sign, of decimals, you going to thank me later. Divide the number of digits behind the decimal by 2. This tells you, this tells you how many digits are behind the decimal in your final answer. Sure. Okay. So, how many numbers are behind the decimal here? 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So, how many numbers are behind the decimal in my answer? 1. Okay. You already knew the square root of 4 was 2. There was 2 numbers behind the decimal, so I had to just put 1 number behind the decimal. Does that make sense? I'll do another one for you. Example 3. Alright. The square root of 0.16. What do you think that's going to be? What number do you see there?
8.
Not 8. You're dividing that whole, right now you're dividing that whole number by 2. I don't want you to do that. I want you to say, what 2 numbers together will give me this number? What number multiplied by itself gives me 16? What number? No, it got to be the same number. So look in your n squared and find 16. Not 8. 4. Okay, so I know my answer is going to have a 4. How many digits are behind the decimal? 2. What's 2 divided by 1? What's 2 divided by 2? 2. 1. So I need, that was a disaster. Let's try this one more time. I have 16 here. That's a number I recognize. I look here. I found out that the square root of 16 is 4. So I put a 4 here. But I know I need a decimal. There's 2 digits behind the decimal. So I divide that number by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I know I only need 1 digit behind the decimal. Okay? No birthday cake on this. Okay? Last thing I want to show you on your homework very quickly. For the algebra, solving these, if you see a S, you pay attention. If you see a S squared, we got to do the opposite. What's the opposite of squaring?
Inverse operation would be. Don't go anywhere.
The opposite of squaring is. What have we been saying?
What did we just do? Turn the square root.
Yes.
Those are opposites. If I take the square root of S squared, I get S.
Don't move. Don't move. The opposite of squaring is square root. So I have S squared. I have S squared. The opposite of that is the square root. So this ends up being S. This ends up being S. And what's the square root of 81? What times itself? Thank you, Genesis. Bye-bye.